Alejandro from the NR Hour Sports Show. This is episode 703 with my special co-host Sean Kiernan from the SK Sports Podcast, and we're joined by special guest Greg Golson, for MLB Outfielder. Thank you for joining the show. This is truly an honor. And first of all, how are you and your family doing so far in the new year of 2021?
Pretty good, pretty good. I mean, I got married about a year ago, so
Congrats.
We had like a year-long honeymoon, I guess you can call it, because we were basically just chilling at the house for a whole year. So last year wasn't, fortunately, last year wasn't as bad for us as other people. So hopefully 2021 is another good one.
So I'll let Sean start off here first.
Hey, Greg, I just want to say thank you for joining today. How are you, man?
Good. Just trying to get rid of some of this cabin fever I got. Everybody.
So my first question, I'll start off by asking you this. You were a first-round pick back in 2004 by the Philadelphia Phillies. So what was that whole entire experience like, and what was your initial reaction just to be given that opportunity by an organization like the Philadelphia Phillies?
Well, what's crazy about the Phillies is they were kind of really incognito and on the down low about their interest in me. I wasn't really aware that they were interested. So when my name got called by the Phillies, it was a surprise. But obviously, when your name gets called, period, on that day, especially in the first round, it's going to be a surprise or a welcomed event. But when the Phillies called me, basically told me they were going to pick me, I remember getting off the phone and having to look up all of the Phillies organizations and stuff, the different affiliates, because I feel like at the time, if you would have asked me to name all 30 teams, I would have left out the Phillies. Just because, I'm out of Texas, the only games that we saw that weren't the Rangers and the Astros was the Braves and the Cubs, because that was, WGN and TBS. So when the Phillies called, it was I immediately had to do a bunch of homework to figure out how I was going to deal with that. One, the fan base, and two, be able to have a little knowledge of Philly so that the fan base wouldn't tear me to shreds.
that fan base is definitely something else, man, for sure.
For sure.
So I got to ask you, when did you start getting interested in baseball? Did you play multiple sports before choosing baseball in high school?
Yeah, baseball was actually I have an older brother and an older sister, and we all played basketball because that was our parents' sport. But all three of us, our favorite sport was other than basketball. So my sister, the oldest, she was a volleyball player. My brother, older than me, he played football at the Naval Academy. And then me, baseball was my favorite sport. But we all played basketball, and I think that ended up probably helping us in our favorite sports because we were able to stay a little bit more athletic. But I think I started playing baseball pretty late, around 9 or 10 years old. And I just remember the very first time that I hit a ball and I could see it kind of disappearing into the night. Obviously it didn't disappear, but it just got smaller.
Right.
The first time I saw that, I was like, I think I'm going to do this for a while. You know what I mean? That feeling, it's kind of like hitting your first drive in golf.
Yeah.
First time you hit one straight, you're hitting the same thing with baseball.
So after that moment, when would you say you really realized when did you have that strong interest in the game of baseball? That's where I want to pursue this as my career.
I think it was honestly when it was probably in high school, probably my freshman or sophomore year, and I don't remember the girl's name, but I remember we were in art class or something, one of my classes that I had for an elective, and we were supposed to draw or make a project of something that we wanted to do. And of course, everything I did in that class had to do with baseball. And I remember this girl saying, "Why don't you do something more realistic?" And I don't know, that wasn't the motivation, but it definitely, I remember that stuck with me for a couple of weeks, you know what I mean? And I think that it wasn't that I wanted to prove her wrong, but it just kind of put the question to myself, why not? Why not me? And I think that was kind of the turning point, probably my freshman year. And that was when I basically, I wouldn't say dedicated my life to baseball, but I got a job at a batting cage so I could hit. I quit basketball. A lot of stuff that I did was, just sacrificing so that I could possibly enjoy that dream.
So, so before you went to the MLB, what advice did you get in high school from current MLB players or former MLB players when you were in high school? What advice did you get just to get you ready for the major leagues?
The probably most influential advice that I got, which probably helped me throughout my career, was somebody told me don't complain, especially about the weather, because it's like everyone's dealing with it. If you allow yourself to complain, then that's that first little chink in the armor that allows you to kind of get your guards down and lose kind of motivation. And on a team, that can kill a season if there's one guy who's just always complaining. And a guy let me know about that, and I just remember being aware of those guys on the team that were negative, that just weren't mentally strong enough. And it was like you could see the black cloud hovering over them. You almost just, as soon as they started talking, I learned to just kind of avoid them and get out of the conversation, because those energy vampires, they're real, man.
So after your time with the Phillies, they ended up trading you to the Texas Rangers, and like you were from like the Texas, you're a native from Texas, like you said. So what was that like for you to play for a team in Texas?
Well, I mean, yeah, I remember I got traded from the Phillies. I think it was a couple of days after we won the World Series. And I remember I got the call, and it was from John Daniels saying that they had acquired me. And I just remember being in shock because, I mean, one, I have a tattoo that has a Phillies P on it. So I was like, well, that's got to do something about that. But also it was just kind of like, whenever you get traded, it's mixed emotions, because obviously you're loyal to the team that drafted you and gave you an opportunity. But when they trade you, it's kind of like, I wouldn't say a slap in the face, but in a sense, you're like, wait a second, you know what I mean? Like I was loyal type of thing. So when I got traded, it was kind of like a bittersweet, but what a lot of the Phillies coaches and people that I talked to when I did get traded, they said, hey, don't look at this as a negative thing. Just see it as they wanted you more. They have a plan for you. So luckily, the people in the Phillies organization were, I still kept a relationship with them. So, being able to deal with it was a little easier when I was able to talk to them and see that it wasn't anything that I did wrong. They had Victorino, they had Michael Bourne, they had Chris Roberson. I mean, they had tons of guys that were, basically the position I played. So I can see why they made the trade in hindsight.
Yes. So speaking of that World Series run, take me back to that season. What was that like? Obviously in 08, and what was a message from the manager that he gave you guys for that World Series run?
Charlie Manuel, he's such a player's manager, and that team was special. And just to say it in itself, like, I feel like there was just a perfect storm of people and personalities for that to work out the way it did. And I mean, obviously, the come from behind in the standings on the Mets in the last 2 to 3 weeks, that was huge. And like, if you look, I feel like every World Series win, there's a moment, or any championship run, there's a moment where you need a little bit of supernatural help in order for it to happen. And I don't know. I don't feel like we had that with the Phillies. There was no like moment where it was like, oh, we got to have this, or it's over. I just feel like at every moment we felt like we were going to win.
Right.
And you try to recreate that on every team that you're on, but sometimes the chemistry is just not the same. So I don't know, that team was special just because you could tell when the game time came around, it was like a light, a switch got flipped.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I had a question. When you ended up going to play for the New York Yankees as well, and now something that stood out to me was a play that you made with your strong arm that you had in right field. Now, I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. In Tropicana Field, big time scenario. You end up throwing out, I believe it was who was it? Carl Crawford. It was
Right.
Carl Crawford at third base. And that was the double play to end the game. So I wanted if you could take me through that play. What was that like?
Well, I mean, I just remember that year because they traded for me to be like a defensive replacement base runner type of thing for Swisher mainly for Nick Swisher. And so Swisher and I, we had kind of built a relationship because, I mean, I was always watching him to see, you know, whether he was going to get on base in the 7th inning or if he was going to get out, because that dictated what I was going to do for the most part. So, you know, that throw, I came in, I think it was that inning, and because we were at Tropicana, for some reason I wasn't able to throw as much because the cage underneath, we weren't able to warm up as much. So I remember asking Granderson in center field, because he was throwing with me, if I could throw with Gardner in left from right, you know, just kind of air it out and get used to it. And after, you know, with the turf, I just remember thinking on these throws, I can keep them low. I can keep them low because it's going to skip. And I remember Crawford got on, and then he stole, yeah, I think he stole second, or Longoria hit a long, something he didn't tag up and advanced. And I think he stole second, and Posada would have thrown him out, but I think Jeter dropped the tag. So, I mean, if you look at all the things that happened during that game, it was like, man, how did I even get the opportunity to do that? Because like, he should have been thrown out at second. I think after he was safe at second, Longoria hit a deep fly ball to center field that he didn't tag up and go to third on. And then with one out, he tries to tag up at second to go to third. And I remember when the ball went up, I was like, you know, the ceiling at Tropicana is baseball color, you know, so I couldn't really get behind it. I was just hoping that I would catch it, because if it bounces, Crawford will probably score.
Yeah.
You know, it's going to bounce probably 40 feet up in the air, and I just got to wait for it. So I was making sure I was underneath it. And then when I caught it, I just was trying to hit Jeter in the chest. And I guess this throw sailed on me, and it was a perfect one hop, and A-Rod picked it perfectly. But I just remember when I let go out of my hand, I was like, oh my goodness, that might get it done. And then as soon as it threw him out, since it was in Tampa, it felt like a home game because our spring training was there. Everyone went crazy, and I was like, oh my gosh. So that was definitely one of the, if not the biggest moment in my career so far.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a big Yankee fan too, and so I just have to ask you this: how crazy is it for you to win the World Series with the Phillies in 08, and then the Phillies going back to the World Series in 09 to face us, and then the Yankees end up winning, and you get traded to the Yankees? So how fortunate are you to play with those two teams that face each other and won each of the years?
I mean, it depends on how you look at it. You know, like if 2008 through 12, if I was playing with, I mean, no disrespect to any other team, but if I was playing with non-playoff teams, maybe I would have gotten a couple more at bats. You know, like, you know, if I had been playing with Oakland, you know what I mean, at that time, or Cincy, or a smaller market team that, you know, make sure that their draft picks get to the big leagues, because they have to get that return on investment. But on the other side of the coin, I got a ring. I got to be around all these Hall of Famers. I made a ton of connections, you know, so I'm not looking back on it and saying that I wish I would have been playing with a team that wasn't in the playoffs. I'm definitely fortunate. My favorite player growing up was Derek Jeter. And I remember I got traded to them, and I went to spring training early to just get some work in. Hitting at the minor league side. And he walks over. Obviously, I saw him walk in. You know, I'm like, oh, there he is, you know. And he walks in, and he comes over to the cage that I'm hitting, and like beeline straight to me. And I'm like, what is happening? And he goes, you're the new guy, huh? I was like, yeah. He goes, I'm Derek. And I'm like, really? And, you know, like shake his hand or whatever. And he's like, you're welcome. You know what I mean? You're going to be out here for the rest of the time. I was like, yeah. And it was just kind of like, I don't know, like Andrew Jones was another guy that I met with the Yankees. Robinson Cano, like Roger, like Andy Pettit, all these guys that I don't know, like I grew up trading baseball cards of them. To be able to play with them, it's definitely a dream come true. But again, on the other side of the coin, I really wish I would have gotten more opportunity to play.
Yeah, definitely. And like you said, Derek Jeter was just like your favorite player, like growing up and watching. Like, let me ask you this. being a part of the Yankees and like with that historic organization, what was it like being surrounded by like that core four and being underneath Joe Girardi, who's a really good manager as well? What was that like experience like, just being surrounded by so many good players, good manager who had like playoff success and just overall terrific success in the game of baseball?
I mean, I think it was a really good experience for me in that, especially now what I'm doing now as a scout.
Mhm.
It's it allows me to see that they're people. You know, like there's while I walk in there and probably 7 to 10 of the players on that team have their own airplanes, their own jets. You know what I mean? But it's like I walk in and it's like, hey, goalie, how you doing? How's, you know, where'd you go eat today? You know what I mean? They're genuine people that are, you know, they're just good at what they do. You know, I feel like that was something that I needed to see, because I think when you're striving for, you know, greatness, or you're striving to be on that level, you look at the people that are there as almost superhuman, you know, and that wasn't the case, you know, like you see how goofy they are, you see that they have their own insecurities, they put their pants on just like I do. So being around them and seeing that, it just kind of allowed me to dream bigger.
Yeah. So for you, so whoever, all right, let me ask you this: whoever doesn't know about you, as a player, what did you bring to the game? And obviously, you're known for speed and defense, and but what did you bring as a hitter?
Well, I brought early on, I brought a lot of inconsistency and strikeouts, because I feel like I was trying to please whatever hitting coach I was with. And while it's good to be coachable, I didn't really learn how to hit until I got into indie ball. You know, so you know, being in indie ball, I was able to talk with other hitters and not, you know, coaches that are trying to, I don't know, keep their job, I guess. I'm just having conversation with other hitters and talking to them. Hey, you know, how did you address this problem that you had? Or what's your approach when you're facing this guy? You know, being able to ask those questions, it allowed me to just kind of grow as a hitter and realize, like, I always thought that, man, I need to work on hitting the breaking ball. The slider is always tough to hit. And I would always try to hit the breaking ball. And when I got to indie ball, I realized, just don't swing at it. You know, like more often than not, it's not going to be a strike. And if it is, oh, well, they're not going to throw you 3 straight in a row. And it's such a simple thing to understand. But once I realized that, I was a lot more confident in the box. And I felt like at any given moment, I could lay a bunt down or hit a home run. So that was what I wanted to keep in the pitcher's mind. Like, you know, well, do I throw in because he can hit a home run, or do I throw away because I don't want him to bunt? Like,
Right.
I wanted to be a threat. And, you know, wherever I was, I remember when I played in Mexico, my big thing was when I got on base, I wanted to be a pest to the pitcher. So I would get a big lead and then dive back. And then when they pick off, I'd dive back. And then as soon as the first baseman would throw the ball back, I'd get my lead and a little bit bigger. And if I saw that the pitcher was looking at me and that got into his head, I wasn't necessarily going to run. I wasn't necessarily going to steal, but I knew that his focus was on me and not the pitcher, not the hitter. Right. So that was kind of what I wanted to do. I wasn't so big on trying to get numbers and statistics and fill up columns. I was bigger on playing the part that I needed to play during the game in order to win.
So now, throughout, you played a lot of minor league baseball, and I was wondering, you traveled so many different cities. You had the opportunity to do that. If you had to pick a couple of cities, like which cities would you say stood out to you?
My favorite home city was probably Charlotte. Just because, I don't know, I have no idea why. I lived downtown, but the stadium was actually in Fort Mill, South Carolina at the time. So it was like a 30-40 minute drive to the field every day. But I loved it because when I lived downtown, it was the first year that I felt like I had a life outside of baseball and still played baseball well. You know what I mean? Like, I remember when I was with the Yankees, I would go to sleep at as soon as I got home and be ready so that I would be ready for the game the next day in case I got in. And, looking back, a guy who I work with now at one of the facilities out here in Denver, his name's Kevin Russo. He was with the Yankees. And we were talking about this not too long ago. We were like, man, I wish we would have enjoyed our time in the big leagues a little bit more instead of obviously you want to be serious about your profession and make sacrifices. But we were in Minnesota, we were in, Fort Worth, we were in great cities, and we would, order pizza and stay home because we wanted to be ready for the next game. So in Charlotte, that was after I'd gotten traded from the Yankees and I was in with the White Sox. I made it a point to enjoy my life and play at the same time. So when I was in Charlotte, I would go to museums, I'd go to coffee shops, I'd go, I'd do whatever, before the game and show up to the field, and I'd feel like I'd be in such a good mood just because I already lived a full day before the game. And I feel like that was one of the years where I made the All-Star team in AAA that year. And I just picked out a routine that worked for me that I wish I had when I was younger.
So obviously, speaking of traveling and moving from team to team, and I know in all sports is a business for players, but for you, what did you learn from each team that you went to in the minor leagues and major leagues? And what did you learn as a player? And how hard was it, like, moving from team to team?
You get better as you keep doing it, like I did. I played with like 14 different teams, but I don't know. I think the more teams you move to, the more you realize they're all kind of the same. You appreciate the organizations that respect their players and are honest with them. Because I don't know. I feel like when you have the human element involved, there's a lot of things that happen that probably aren't on the straight and narrow or on the up and up. And I think any baseball player goes through their career and they have certain situations where you're like, that wasn't the way it was supposed to be. So I think going through the different organizations, it's not necessarily any particular lesson you learn from the different organizations. It's more you just get a more well-rounded look at the game, and you see that the grass necessarily isn't greener on the other side. It's about the people and the individuals that are there. That's what I love about the Dodgers is I'm a scout with the Dodgers now is,
right.
Everyone, it's such a big collaboration, like scouts, research and development, player development. We all communicate, and it's it's just a fluid community that it just seems like it works better for the players because of that. You know what I mean? So I don't know. I feel like the benefit of playing with all these different teams is my network is huge now. I feel like every day I see someone, I'm like, oh, that was my roommate, or oh, that I played with that guy. You know what I mean? So having those connections, I can't wait to see how it pays off in the future.
Now, since you're a scout for the LA Dodgers now, is there like any specific area that you're assigned to that you actually look for talent, or are you assigned to like multiple areas in different countries that you really focus on talent?
Well, the last year is my first year, so that I'm obviously very green under the ears, or wetter. I don't know what the term is, but I'm very new to this, so kind of learning as I go. But last year I was just covering the Brewers and the Reds, and just basically watching those games and not necessarily for any reason. Like sometimes it could be for acquiring, sometimes it could be just for advanced scouting. But the idea is just to be familiar with the team so that if they do come to me with a question, I've got a grasp on what's going on,
So for you, obviously the Dodgers won the World Series last year in the shortened season. That you have 2 rings. So what was it like seeing that, and especially 60-game season, and all these teams were going through a lot. So for you, what was your reaction when they won the World Series?
It was crazy. I was talking to somebody about this the other day. Not very many people know that I was in Arizona during the World Series, covering instructs. So during the World Series, the team that I was covering, the Reds, they played their instructional games at night. So while I'm scouting these instructional league games, I'm like keeping track of the World Series on my phone. So the last game, the deciding game, the game that I was supposed to go watch got canceled, so I got to watch the whole game. But I went to some like Total Beverage, or I forgot what it's called, some like beer place, and got a 6-pack and just watched the game. And I remember when we won, like jumping up and down in the hotel room by myself in Arizona. And it's like, I don't know, I don't think I've ever been that happy by myself, in a hotel room, but it was kind of crazy. I probably woke up some neighbors and stuff, but it was definitely an interesting celebration. A one-man dog pile.
So what was now, since you're part of the Dodgers organization, this is just another historic organization you're a part of. And like, what does it mean to you to get this opportunity as being a part of with this legendary organization?
I mean, I feel like, I don't know how to describe it, but it's one of those jobs where you go from being a player to a scout, and it's difficult to kind of find your voice as a scout. Mm-hmm. Especially when your coworkers and colleagues are, 10, 15, 20-year scouts. So I don't know. I feel like as a player, you have this transition that you have to go through where you've probably heard of a scout give you a bad scouting grade as a player, and it kind of jades you. It kind of makes you jaded at all scouts. So, when I first got into it, I was like, I'm going to be different. You know what I mean? But it's so interesting how your process kind of changes as you keep watching players. You put a grade on a guy, and then a year later you put that same grade on a guy. Those grades kind of have to sync up. You know what I mean? So your word is constantly on the line. So you kind of have to get out of your feelings. You know what I mean? Like, and look at the players objectively so that you can get a good handle on what he is. Because when you turn this report in, people are reading it. It's not like you're just writing it and then it's going nowhere. So I don't know. It's definitely an honor, talking about, having a say in these moves that they're making. I'm not saying I had like I was the one that said, yeah, go ahead, sign Bauer. But, knowing that he was on the Reds last year and I covered him all year, like I feel like my input had something to do with them acquiring that. So, having, I don't know, being able to impact the game still, even though I'm not playing, that's huge for me.
So speaking of so for you being a scout, what's it like seeing the Dodgers continuing to add to the team? Like you just said, Trevor Bauer's in fold. With that starting rotation between the Padres and the Dodgers this year is going to be sick. And I think those two teams are going to be competing for the division, in my opinion. But for you, what are you most looking forward to? Obviously, you have Mookie Betts there in the outfield for a long time. But in the minor league system, what do you like about the Dodgers minor league system?
See, that's what's crazy, and that's probably where I need to do a better job at. But last year, I remember watching the after the Reds or the Brewers games would get over, trying to watch the Dodgers games and falling asleep because they start so late and I've had a full day. So, my knowledge of our organization isn't as high as I want it to be, especially with not having a minor league season last year. So I didn't get to see any of them really. But, I never really played Dodgers teams either coming up. I was always on the East Coast. So, when I got to the Dodgers, it was really me just getting to know them as an organization. And the whole, I don't know, I just feel like with everything that went on this past year, there's going to be some changes that people have to get adjusted to, with contraction and, there's just less spots available all over in every industry really, but with baseball in particular, scouts are losing their jobs. Players are losing their jobs, coaches are losing their jobs. And, I feel fortunate to be able to get a scouting job when I feel like the industry is shrinking. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Now, what advice, because you, like you said earlier on, you had the experience of bouncing around with a lot of different teams, playing in a lot of different cities. Like for some young kids and even some players today that are bouncing around to different teams, like what advice would you give them to like adjust into a new situation?
Don't be afraid to look stupid. That's what I'll say. Like, I feel like a lot of progress is halted because people are worried about looking stupid. When you get to pro ball or when you get to the next level, everyone for the most part has a little insecurity. And I feel like a lot of people, it requires them almost surprising themselves and be like, oh, I can do this. Whereas other people, they kind of fake it till they make it. And I feel like you've got to figure out what works for you. But the main thing is never let doubt in. Like doubt. I feel like there were times when I was walking up to the plate, and ultimately when I was walking back to the dugout after I had gotten out, I felt, or I thought to myself, I knew I was going to get out before I even walked up to the plate. I didn't want to admit it, but something in me knew that I wasn't going to get a hit. And I think that's where, there's a lot of growth for players, because if they can be aware of that before they go into that situation, they can have a better approach. You know what I mean?
So for you, how grateful are you to be able to play the game that you love? And obviously, baseball is your number one sport too. So how grateful to be in this position, being a scout now, and winning a World Series with the Phillies, and have another World Series ring with the Dodgers. So how grateful are you to be in this position right now?
I mean, again, like that's what I kind of alluded to it earlier when I said 2020 wasn't that bad for me. I say it that way, but I mean, like 2020 was a blessing for me. You know what I mean? Like I got to spend time with my wife. I got married. I got a job. Got a World Series ring. Like it was a great year, and I feel so fortunate to have experienced it. So again, like I can't be thankful enough. I thank God for everything He's given me.
So, like, being a former player now, like the 2020 season, that was a year like no other in baseball, and really worldwide for everybody. So I want to ask you, how would you approach the game knowing that there's no fans in the stands? Because I know how hard that is. What do you think you would be in that like circumstance?
When you played more games in the minor leagues than the big leagues, that's not a big issue for you, not having fans. I feel like it definitely hurt the guys who were up there for a long time and used to big crowds. Like I feel like that impacted a lot of big name players. I don't know, like Yelich. You know what I mean? Like that guy's MVP caliber player, and I feel like just the feeding off the fans, especially when he hits a bomb or does something crazy, I feel like that really elevates his game when he can feed off the fans. So I think closers too. I think closers and pitchers, I think they got hurt from not having fans in the stands, because closers, they kind of feed off that energy as well. Like they always talk about closers not being good when they come into a game that isn't a safe situation. Well, typically a safe situation is just the energy, the moment. And I feel like the crowd makes a big deal out of that. And I don't know, I feel like it's probably easier for the hitters, but I think something that a lot of people didn't realize is I think the umpires struggled without the fans.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Speaking of like crazy rules, what did you think of having a man on second base starting off the extra innings?
Again, man, we did that. I played in the Atlantic League my last year in 2019, and we did that rule. And you go into it thinking, man, this isn't baseball. And then when every extra inning game is over in an inning or two, you're like, it's not that bad. You know what I mean? Like you, as a player, you just kind of take the trade-off. Like everyone's played in those 20 inning games where everyone's trying to hit a bomb. I feel like when you put a runner on second, it kind of makes everyone go, oh, okay, we can get out of here a lot quicker. So I don't know. I feel like there's going to be a lot of changes to the game over the next 20 years. But I don't know. I feel like the some of the rules that they're trying to implement might be a little bit too aggressive, but you got to see what you got to see, you know.
Now, something that happened last year, there was a universal DH, and then we had the expanded postseason. Like, when you were playing, was there like ever a thought in your head, or maybe by like your teammates or friends, were you guys like ever talking about like a universal DH, how that would be like more of an opportunity for certain guys, or that didn't really pop in your head as much?
Not really. I mean, I think if you are in a national league, the universal DH, it just makes it seem like you're going to be better. You know, like I'm sure the pitchers in the National League didn't want the universal DH because, I don't know. Who knows? Some guys probably wanted to hit, and some guys probably liked facing the opposing pitcher 2 to 3 at bats a game. So you know, everything's going to be up for debate. I just feel like we just need to come to a consensus and stop tinkering with it so much. You know what I mean? Like, let's figure something out, because it's been debated since the DH was implemented in the American League. So I don't know. I personally don't like it. I feel like if you play a position, you should hit. And I feel like the National League game makes the manager more important. It makes the pitcher more important, the pitching coach more important. I feel like the game is more of a game instead of just home run derby like American League is.
Right.
And I feel like the National League, it allows for younger players to have an opportunity that the American League doesn't, because usually the DH is some 38-plus-year-old who rakes, right?
Mm-hmm.
Unless it's the Rays that are using a younger guy. Most of the time, the DH is an aging veteran. You know what I mean? So I feel like the National League would keep the game young, and I feel like it makes the game more exciting, because you have to fight for runs.
Yeah.
Whereas the American League, that you just kind of assume you're going to get 6.
No, I definitely agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah. So I do this segment called Rapid Fire. So you ready for this?
I guess I got to be right.
So my first one here: Kawhi Leonard's laugh or Kevin Hart's laugh?
Kawhi, of course. Kawhi Leonard, of course.
I'm gonna number one hobby.
Honestly, right now it's crypto.
Ooh.
There's some opportunity. I feel like, hopefully I don't lose all my money, but I feel like it's interesting.
So Johnny, like I said earlier, Johnny Damon was on the show yesterday, and he had his World Series rings with him. Where do you keep your World Series rings?
Well, I have one just kind of hanging out in my room. I wear it occasionally, and then we haven't got the sizing chart for our Dodgers one, so I'll send that in. But I have actually 3 other rings.
Oh wow!
The Mexican World Series, the championship there, league championship, and 2 championships in the minor leagues. So I have 5 rings now. I'll have 6, and then 1 in Indy Ball. We won 1 in 2015.
Man,
so,
you need one more to catch Brady. Come on.
I know, right? These are a little bigger than mine, though.
That's too funny. Greg, what was your this actually might be a hard question, but what was your favorite stadium to play in?
Probably Rochester, because I hit well there. But if it was a big league stadium, I'd say probably Yankee Stadium, just because that was the first time I was in center field and there was a pitching change. That was the first time where I kind of stepped back and looked around and saw like the arches at Yankee Stadium. I saw all of that, and I looked around and saw like the names that were on the board, and I thought about all the guys who had played there, like not just Yankee Stadium, but just who had played in that jersey. I feel like that was just something that I don't know. It was a big moment. I didn't tear up or anything, but if there was a moment to tear up, that would have been it on the field.
So outside of the World Series with the Phillies and outside of the game that you had against Tampa, what would you say your other most memorable game you had in your career?
There was in 2007, I believe, I hit for the cycle in A-ball.
Yeah.
That was cool. 2000, the year before in 2006, the first game of the season, my first at bat, I hit a ball that would have been a home run. And my second at bat, I hit a home run. And then my third and fourth at bats, I hit a triple and a single.
Wow.
So it would have been a cycle. I forgot what it was. Something where I ended up with 2 home runs, a double and a triple, or I ended up one short of the cycle. And then the next year against the same team, I ended up hitting for the cycle. That was cool. My first hit with the Yankees against the Tigers, that was cool because it was my 8th at bat, but it was after being in the big leagues with the Phillies, the Rangers not getting hits with them, because I got 6 at bats with the Phillies and 1 at bat with the Rangers. So my first at bat with the Yankees, I got a hit off of Bill Koch. And I remember saying, it took me eight at bats, but 3 years to get that first hit. You know what I mean? So that was cool. And once I got the first one, I felt like it was so much easier for me to just see in the box in the big leagues, just because I wasn't pressing so much.
Right.
Who would you say was like some of the hardest pitchers that you ever had to face?
I feel like pitchers in the big leagues aren't as hard to face because they're around the zone. The zone is this big. It's so small in the big leagues. And the lights are good. There's no shadows. You see everything. But as far as stuff, probably Verlander was his curveball was so big. It starts like at your head and it ends up just barely off the ground away. You know what I mean?
Wow.
So I remember I was about to face him in Detroit, and Randy Wynn was hitting in front of me, and he's a switcher.
Yep.
So Randy gets up, and Verlander walks him on 4 pitches, all head high in the right-hander's batter's box. I'm coming up next, and first pitch, he throws me a breaking ball that starts at my head, and of course I duck out of the way. And he's I ended up grounding into a double play, hitting a ground ball to short. But I look back at that and I'm like, he probably saw that some rookie was on the on-deck circle and Randy Wynn is in the box. All right, I'll just walk this guy and set up my curveball by throwing all these fastballs head high while this rookie's watching. And that's exactly what he did. Curveball buckled me again, and threw a fastball down and away, perfectly located, and I just tapped it to the shortstop, and it was like, I just got played. You know what I mean?
That's crazy. Damn. But for you, obviously you played a lot with a lot of great players throughout your career. Which one would you say is the funniest one?
Mike Costanzo.
Oh,
wow.
That guy, he will forever be my favorite teammate. Just because, I was a top pick in 2004, and I think he was a top pick in 2006 for the Phillies. Excuse my dog. It's just kind of like, he's from Philly. So he's like a diehard Philly fan. He was a diehard Eagles fan. Just bled Philadelphia, right? And I don't know. He was just a good teammate, always in a good mood, always willing to do whatever he needed to do to help you out. He was just a good dude.
Now, I want to ask you, let's see, when you were growing up, who's like a major role model? Who was like a major impact on your life to get up to the point where you're at now?
Obviously, like my dad and my brother. Those are they kind of laid the groundwork for me. And even though I'd probably never tell them that, that's probably who I looked up to growing up. But I don't know. I always liked athletes, obviously. But my favorite athletes were Grant Hill, Ken Griffey Jr., and obviously Derek Jeter as I got older. But I don't know. I liked the idea of guys that were good, guys that were charismatic, and guys that kept their nose clean. You know, like they had a full career, and it was like never got in trouble, never did anything wrong, just constantly in a positive light. And I don't think that's necessarily because they're perfect. I just think it just took care of business, you know. So I feel like that was something that I wanted, and I think that's something that a lot of guys want to be is the guy on the team, like Mookie, you know, like Mookie Betts got to the Dodgers, and immediately he made everybody better. You know, like that's the kind of thing that you aspire to be.
So I gotta ask you this. I know you're a scout right now, but if the right opportunity comes to you, is there a comeback in the works for you?
No chance, man. Yeah, no chance. I mean, I feel like I would still be able to hit.
Yeah, you can still play. I feel like you can still play, man. You would be a great piece to a title contender team.
You're too kind. Honestly, I do go hit occasionally to kind of work out, but I do feel like, man, if I had, because after watching for so long, after a full year of watching, you know, I get in the cage and I try stuff, and I'm like, I wish I'd have known that when I played, type of thing, right? Well, I just I know that the last 3 to 4 years of my career, I spent more time on the disabled list than I did on the field because my body was just breaking down, you know, and you know, playing 16 years is tough on the body, especially as a speed guy who runs hard. Like I didn't know how to run smooth. Like I ran hard, and that eventually just wore my calves out, wore my hamstrings out, wore everything out. So I would love to be a DH, but probably not going to make a comeback.
So actually, my last question that I have for you is that what are your goals for heading into this 2021 season as a scout?
It's a good question. I mean, we just we're hoping that the season starts on time and that we're able to scout in person. I think a lot of the scouting, well, all the scouting last year was video, so it's not like that's bad that it's video, but you know, getting to see them in person, you obviously get to see more and get different angles and have a little bit more freedom to get different looks. But I feel like this year I just kind of want to, I don't know, perfect my process, I guess, and just streamline how I operate. Just because I feel like as a player and not having as many, I don't know, as a player, you leave the clubhouse every day and it says on there report time, when the stretch time, and when everything is. So your whole life as a player, your schedule's given to you and everything's kind of catered to you. Where, you know, as a scout, you are given the freedom to make your own schedule. So, you know, just kind of making that next progression as an adult, I guess, because I haven't had a real job my whole life. You know, I just kind of want to progress into, you know, just streamline my processes and just be a little bit better.
So before we get to the last two things, me and my co-host Alyssa were part of the Hugh Jackson Foundation, and obviously he's a former NFL coach. He's trying to get back into coaching, but mainly focus on this foundation, and we're ambassadors for them now. We're trying to help prevent human trafficking and making sure the community is safe and make sure these kids make the right choices in their life. So I'm going to send you that page. You can check it out. You and your wife should check it out. It's really inspiring, and we're grateful to be ambassadors for the Hugh Jackson Foundation and help prevent human trafficking. So
absolutely, man. You know what's crazy is last year, right around the beginning of the whole COVID thing, was when me and my wife started being more aware of the human trafficking stuff and how much of a problem it is. And man, I didn't know that was something that you were involved in, but man, knowing that you are, that's awesome. I couldn't be more supportive. Please send it over.
Yeah, well, and the last two things here, obviously this is a question I've been bringing up to all my guests. Do you have any like Kobe memories throughout your career, and Gianna memories too?
Well, Kobe was actually one of my favorite players. He's the reason why I'm a Laker fan. And I'd say, I don't know, that Mamba mentality was just something that I kind of tried to take on because, you know, he was born in, I think August or September. So we had the same astrological sign. So being Virgos, we're super duper mental and like cerebral. And I don't know, I felt like I vibed with Kobe in that way, in that regard, and that, you could see in the game when he turned on that other gear, that other personality in his head, where it was like, you're not stopping him. You know, I think that's something that I think everybody tries to be, where it's like, you won't be stopped when you want it bad enough.
Mm-hmm. Actually, before we get to the last thing, so since you're a Laker fan and since you're a scout with the Dodgers, what was it like seeing the Dodgers and the Lakers winning the championship in the same year?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely crazy. I feel like that happens a lot, man. Like the city gets the momentum and then it just takes over.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, that I feel like that was awesome when that happened. And for a minute there, we thought the Rams were going to do something too,
right.
you know. But yeah, it's awesome. I've never felt I think I've been to LA once or twice. But you know, it's obviously you want LA to do well, especially with how crazy everything is going right now. You want anybody to do well, but seeing them get the trophy and get the championship in basketball, that's, I imagine LA is just riding high right now.
Mm-hmm.
The last thing here, would you like to say anything to all the nurses, doctors, and essential workers right now?
Just thank you. You know what I mean? Doing stuff that a lot of people don't want to do, and I admire what you're doing, and hopefully we get through this.
Mm-hmm. Well said, and there it is. This wraps up episode 703 with former MLB outfielder Greg Golson, and now he's a scout with the Dodgers. Thank you for joining the show today. The championship Dodgers. There you go. So thank you for joining the show today. I really appreciate it. I'll be posting this on all social media formats. And congrats on your marriage. And tell your wife I said congrats. And we're wishing you a healthy success year. And hopefully some positive things comes to all of us. And just keep it up, man. I think you can make a good manager one day if you're up to it. So.
We got a good one. We got a good one in LA right now. So
yeah,
I'll stay in my lane.
but you and your family stay safe.
Appreciate it.
Good.
Thanks, man.
Have a good one.